Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wondered what happens when you put two Capricorns together?
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're really plunging into the astrological dynamics of this double Earth sign connection.
Yeah, it's a fascinating
We've
one.
got a whole stack of sources, actually, different angles from the times of India.
Hmm.
Friendship, love, money, work.
Right.
Then there's compatibility stuff from Insta-Astro, broader Capricorn insights, again, from times of India, communication styles from Fashion Frenzy,
Oh, interesting.
even conflict tips from Way Mystic, and get this, some real-world takes on Capricorn parenting from Reddit.
Wow, okay, so a real mix.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Our mission really is to dig out the core truths, maybe the surprises, and those aha moments you get when two of these super driven people connect.
Okay.
So where do we start? Let's unpack this combo.
Well, the first thing that really jumps out from several sources is how often these pairings actually start because of shared professionalism.
Right, like at work or school.
Exactly. Places like that, it's like they spot a kindred spirit, Someone else who's just as dedicated.
That makes total sense.
And Insta-Astro really highlights this mutual admiration. They see the work ethic in each other, that drive for success, and apparently it creates this almost instant understanding.
Like a shared language.
Pretty much, yeah. A language of ambition, maybe?
Right, that unspoken, I see you working hard vibe. But it's deeper than just ambition, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. Instaastro also points to their shared Earth sign nature, both ruled by Saturn.
Okay.
And that lays this groundwork of common values, things like stability, practicality, and just sheer determination.
Mm-hmm.
And another Times piece adds that they often appreciate the same things, like tradition, maybe being self-employed, having that sense of order.
So it sounds like they're often operating on a pretty similar wavelength from the get-go.
Very much so.
Is that drive for order linked to the Earth sign thing, too? That
Oh.
stability you mentioned.
Precisely. Yeah, being an Earth sign, their focus naturally goes towards, tangible results, stability, practical stuff.
Okay.
And these shared values, they really set the stage for some complementary strength when they actually work together.
How so?
Well, in friendships, the Times of India notes they bring this dose of realism, drawing on experience, offering a strategic view.
Right.
And what's cool is how this can turn into a really effective partnership. Like, picture one Capricorn being brilliant at the meticulous planning, and the other maybe having a real knack for creative problem solving, but within those planned structures.
Interesting.
Yeah, it becomes this kind of harmonious way of working together. They can rely on each other's skills, which are different, but, aligned.
That's a really compelling dynamic. Two driven people, but maybe bringing slightly different facets of that drive.
Exactly.
And professionally.
Yeah.
The Times of India piece highlights how organized they are, detail-oriented, systematic.
Textbook Capricorn, really.
Yeah. And Insta-Astro goes even further, calls them an unstoppable dynamic duo at work if they combine their abilities.
High praise.
It sounds like, if you need a job done efficiently and precisely, a Capricorn team could be amazing.
Potentially, yes.
But could that intensity, could it also lead to burnout? Or maybe a lack of work-life balance if both are that driven?
That is a really crucial question. It's definitely something to watch out for. That shared dedication, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword.
Right.
And, while that professional alignment can be super powerful, navigating the emotional side of things, even between two Capricorns, that can have its nuances.
Okay, how does that play out?
Well, the Times of India points out that Capricorns can be, naturally reserved.
Yeah.
They might prefer talking about practical issues rather than just pouring out their feelings, even with close friends.
Yeah, I could see that.
And this reserve, it comes from that Saturn influence, that focus on the tangible, but ironically, it might actually make another Capricorn feel more secure.
Because they get it. They respect that need for space.
Exactly. But the flip side is, it can lead to moments of feeling a bit detached if they aren't consciously working on connection.
That makes sense. They're so grounded in the, real world. The Times also suggests romance between two Caps might not be fireworks at first sight.
Probably not, no. It says love often develops more deliberately, based on those shared values, that realistic outlook on what a partnership actually involves.
Okay.
And Instaastro brings up a potentially tricky area, sexual compatibility.
Oh.
Yes, this suggests their shared practicality, maybe combined with a bit of shyness about expressing desires fully, that could create some initial hurdles. It seems like if that emotional distance we talked about isn't bridged, it could definitely affect, their physical connection too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And does that tie into how they communicate generally?
Directly, yeah. Instaastro notes their communication can be, well, brutally honest.
Which another Capricorn might actually appreciate, right? The directness.
They might, yes, for the lack of pretense. But it might not always make it easy to share those deeper, more vulnerable feelings. And this is where I'm a Mystic's advice on handling conflicts with Capricorns comes in handy. They point out that Capricorns can be pretty stubborn in arguments.
Right. Not easily swayed.
Exactly. So imagine two of them disagreeing.
Ooh, yeah. That paints a picture. The Times of India mentions this potential for conflict at work, too.
How so?
Specifically that both might kind of want to be the one in charge.
The leadership instinct.
Yeah. So disagreements could pop up about how to do things, not just what, especially if one's thinking long-term strategy and the other's focused on, like, immediate goals.
That makes sense. A clash of timelines.
And that other Times piece on overall compatibility sort of sums it up. Difficulties expressing emotions can cause communication breakdowns, feeling like needs aren't met, maybe because both are so focused on work.
It's a definite potential pitfall. But, it's not all challenges. Not at all.
Okay, good.
When you look at the foundations of their relationships, some really significant strengths shine through.
Like what?
Well, the Times of India piece on friendship really emphasizes that they're often built on this solid base of mutual respect, trust, and that shared work ethic we keep coming back to.
Right.
And in romance, the same article talks about the inherent stability. It's founded on mutual understanding, deep respect, and a strong sense of responsibility towards the partnership.
That sounds incredibly reliable, secure.
Totally. And Instaastro echoes this for marriage, calls the compatibility typically strong, built on love, trust, loyalty, a really dependable bond.
You know, what really struck me was something Instaastro said about trust between two Capricorns being quite rare to see in, like, general life.
Interesting phrasing.
Yeah. It implies that when it does form between two of them, it's exceptionally strong and valuable. Because they're both so hardworking and loyal, they just recognize and value that quality deeply in each other.
That makes a lot of sense. They get what that loyalty means. And when their goals align, their combined effort can be, well, incredibly powerful. The Times highlights they can build this really strong foundation of mutual trust and responsibility, a very grounded, practical relationship.
You see this with money, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Times piece on finance describes their compatibility there as deeply rooted in realism, responsibility, focus on long-term security. Both tend to be systematic, serious, focused on the future.
So, avid savers.
Very likely, yes. Willing to make sacrifices for those financial goals. It's like having two people both diligently saving for retirement, completely understanding and supporting that commitment.
So, yeah, probably not a lot of spontaneous wild splurges happening there.
Maybe not their default mode, no.
And the Times even suggests their hard work and discipline could lead to, significant financial prosperity, especially with good planning. Sounds like a potentially very secure future together.
It definitely has that potential, but, and this is important, to really make the most of it, they need some conscious strategies. Intentional effort.
Okay, what kind of strategies?
Well, for friendships, the Times notes it's vital to let the bond deepen over time. Mutual respect, yes, but also making an effort to understand the feelings underneath, given that natural reserve.
Right. Don't just assume everything's fine because they aren't complaining.
Exactly. And in romance, they really need to actively prioritize open communication and expressing emotions consistently.
Ow.
Well, that article specifically suggests carving out casual time together, like deliberately stepping away from work and responsibilities just to connect as people.
Okay, so scheduling in quality time. Being intentional about sharing feelings, not just, like, discussing the household budget.
Precisely. Because it might not always happen organically.
And financially.
Open, honest discussions about plans, objectives, setting realistic goals together, spending, saving, investing, all very Capricorn, but doing it together.
Makes sense. Apply those project management skills to the joint finances.
Kind of. And professionally, again, open, honest dialogue, genuinely appreciating each other's strengths, clear guidelines for who does what, regular check-ins.
Right.
That can really help avoid those leadership clashes.
Like running the team like a well-managed project.
Exactly. And when disagreements do come up, We Mystic has some really practical tips tailored for Caps.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Patience. First and foremost, really taking time to hear the other person out.
crucial with potential stubbornness.
Definitely. And actually acknowledging your part in the argument, saying sorry sincerely, that can be super effective. It shows their viewpoint was heard, validated.
Okay.
Also, showing consistent love and respect. Framing it as different viewpoints, not personal attacks. And remembering, this is key, what seems minor to one might be a really big deal to the other.
That's such a valuable point. Different perspectives aren't necessarily right or wrong.
Exactly. And Insta-Astro adds to this, emphasizing working on emotional compatibility. Making a conscious effort to be more open, vulnerable, doing relaxing things together.
Getting out of work mode.
Pretty much. Their overall tips really boil down to prioritize mutual support, understand each other deeply, strive for that work-life balance, and actively nurture intimacy. It seems that emotional connection needs deliberate, ongoing attention.
Right. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. That Reddit discussion on Capricorn parents sounded fascinating.
It really was. What's interesting is the variety, but with some common threads running through.
Like what?
Generally, a tendency towards being maybe semi-strict, clear boundaries on things like grades, keeping rooms tidy.
Kind of, yeah, classic Capricorn order.
Kind of, yeah. But also allowing kids to express feelings and a really strong desire underneath it all to build trust, to be seen as supportive, someone who'll help them fix mistakes.
So responsibility, but with a safety net.
That's a great way to put it. They want kids to be self-sufficient, but no support's always there. And no surprise, and still a strong work ethic.
Of course.
But what's really compelling is this newer perspective some mentioned consciously trying to break, like negative generational patterns.
Oh, interesting.
Leaning towards gentle parenting, but rooted in logic and understanding, not just, strict rules or physical discipline. Some saw physical discipline as a lack of parental control, actually.
Wow. That's a really thoughtful evolution of that Capricorn drive.
Isn't it? Applying it to raising kids differently. And the thread mentioned how some relatives might see them as hardworking, maybe a bit blunt in preparing kids for the awful truth of the world, as one person put it.
Ah, yeah, potentially blunt.
A potential pitfall mentioned was maybe being a bit too traditional sometimes. But then you also see these examples of Cap parents actively choosing gentle techniques, having clear safety rules, but open discussions about other things.
So focusing on mental health, feelings, responsibilities that make sense for their age.
Exactly. It shows a real spectrum, but all stemming from wanting to guide their kids responsibly.
Okay, and finally, let's really nail down the communication style. The fashion frenzy piece seemed insightful.
Yeah, the big takeaway there is how purpose-driven their communication is. They want clear, meaningful messages. Not huge fans of small talk. Efficiency, clarity, that's key.
Got it.
But what's also really noteworthy is they're often very keen listeners. They actually take time to gather info, think, before responding thoughtfully.
So they aren't just waiting to talk.
Not usually, no. And their analytical minds can often pick up on underlying emotions, which might seem a bit surprising given that reserved exterior.
But as Fashion Frenzy noted, that honesty, that directness, it can sometimes come across as blunt, right? Maybe even harsh.
It can, yeah. Even if that's not the intention at all, it's something they might need to be mindful of the impact of their words.
Okay.
But trust, that's built through their actions. Consistency, reliability, they really do walk the walk, and that fosters deep loyalty and respect.
Actions speak louder than words for them.
Very much so. And while their default might be more professional, maybe emotionally restrained, consciously adding warmth and connection can really enrich things.
And conflict.
They tend to avoid unnecessary confrontation, prefer careful thought, logic. They'll address the problem directly, usually without blaming.
So, problem-solving mode.
Pretty much. And self-awareness seems crucial here. Understanding their own style lets them adapt, be more sensitive to others' needs, maybe even use humor to connect.
So an effective Capricorn communicator balances that seriousness with, intentional empathy.
Exactly. That's a great summary.
Okay, so wrapping this all up. When you put two Capricorns together, what's the final picture?
It really seems to be a relationship built on this incredibly solid foundation. Shared core values, mutual respect for hard work, that serious, responsible approach to life.
Right.
Maybe, spontaneous emotional fireworks or whimsical stuff takes a back seat sometimes to practicality and goals.
Uh-huh.
But the potential for a really stable, loyal, supportive bond is undeniably strong.
The key thing seems to be communication, doesn't it? And understanding.
Absolutely critical. For this pairing to really flourish, they need that conscious, ongoing effort, nurturing the emotional side, finding that balance between ambition and intimacy.
This whole deep dive really always is a fascinating look at how these astrological energies can sort of play out in real relationships. What's the biggest takeaway for you from all this?
For me, it's that reminder that even with so much shared ground, the values, the drive, it's the intentional work on connection, on understanding the nuances of the other person that really makes the difference. That shared foundation is powerful, but it still needs tending.
Yeah, beautifully put. It makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What resonates most with you listening to this? What other questions pop up about compatibility, about relationships in general? It really underscores that while shared traits give you a strong start, it's that deliberate effort to connect deeply. That's what truly builds something lasting and fulfilling.